and for the valley prepared. Buellton City Council from 2010 to 2014 and served as its mayor in 2013. And now, therefore, I, Mayor Jim Richardson, on behalf of the City Council of the City of Solvang, join in congratulating Junith E. Dale for the honor of being named the 2018 Woman of the Year. Signed, Jim Richardson. The next one is in recognition of Kate and Brooks Firestone. The San Ynez Valley News and the San Ynez Valley Foundation's selection of a Lifetime Achievement for the year 2018. I have to say, so I'm going to make a comment in here, and I hope it doesn't insult anybody, but it's cute. Whereas the City of Solvang wishes to pay tribute to Kate and Brooks Firestone, San Ynez Valley News and San Ynez Valley Foundation's selection for the 2018 Lifetime Achievement. And whereas Kate Firestone was born in Calcutta, India, was evacuated to England at the end of the Second World War, joined the Royal Ballet Company, and traveled with the world tour that led her to New York City, where she met Brooks at the stage door of the Metropolitan Opera House. And whereas Brooks' stage door Johnny Firestone was born in the Ohio Tire and Rubber Company, graduated from Columbia and joined the Firestone Company after being drafted for 2 years as an Army Medical Corpsman. His 12-year career in the tire company ended in England. And whereas Brooks Firestone conceived the opportunity to pioneer a wine grape growing and a winery in San Ynez Valley, and moved his young family from England, and in 1972 moved to the San Ynez Valley to found the Firestone Winery. Whereas Kate and Brooks Firestone will celebrate their 60th wedding anniversary this year. And whereas Kate and Brooks Firestone have 4 children, Haley, Adam, Polly, and Andrew, and their family now includes 14 grandchildren and 1 great-grandchild. And whereas Brooks Firestone's public service has been centered on his political dedication, which included a term as a county supervisor and 2 terms as a member of the California State Assembly, and was chair of the St. Mark's Building Committee, and has continued to be a strong member of that parish, as well as a volunteer teacher at Dunn School, a member of the PCPA Foundation Board, and a member of the Granada Theater Board. Whereas Kate Firestone has served as a Direct Relief Board member, Cottage Hospital Foundation Board member, and participated in numerous local projects, including Meals on Wheels and St. Mark's Church activities. And whereas Kate and Brooks Firestone both enjoy choral singing at the St. Mark's Choir, the Santa Barbara Choral Society, and other international tour groups. Whereas Kate Firestone continues with numerous community and social activities, and Brooks Firestone enjoys bike riding and has adopted a highway tree maintenance project. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Jim Richardson, on behalf of the City Council of the City of Solvang, join in congratulating Kate and Brooks Firestone for their honor of being named 2018 Lifetime Achievement recipients. Those are quite significant honors, and they'll make the presentations on March 24th at their dinner to honor them. Okay, the Solvang Chamber of Commerce year-to-date grant update presentation. Tracy Beard.
There's flyers here for a guest if you want to have one. Thank you all for having me. I think we're getting the video ready for you. That's it? That's it, then the commercials come. Should be
Matt's your IT guy.
Okay, that's my IT guy. Okay, I'll sit down with this if you don't mind. Thank you for having me here tonight. I very much appreciate. I am the Solvang Chamber of Commerce Director, Tracy Beard. And tonight, we're going to give you an overview of what we've done on 217, 218 at this point with your grant funding money that you have given us for last year. And we very much appreciate it and very much appreciate everything and being that partner with the City of Solvang and our other partnerships throughout the county. We're going to start here. Do you want to go ahead and we'll start rolling? No, I think this is, we need to go back. I think this is, yeah, here we are. Okay. So this is a little video we did on to kind of tell who we are and what we're doing. And we wanted to just let you know our accomplishments for 2017. We have done another awards dinner. We've worked with the Danish Days Beer Garden, handling that pretty well. We've worked with the Stand Down very much so, that we've taken the lead as a chamber throughout the Stand Down. We are working with our Go Green Business Expo and working as a Go Green community. We've done a North County Leadership Conference this year here in town for all the nonprofits. And we, I think, did a nice State of the City last year, and I think this year went off pretty well. And our awards dinner. We'd like to say our biggest achievement, having a little more music here. We're on collaborations, sorry, it's moving fast. I'll talk faster. As you can see, we gave you a little flyer which will tell you some of the things that we've accomplished, and we feel our music is very good that we've accomplished in the park. Our marketing campaigns have done very well. We have 1,000 spots we did between October and now. And we have those spots that we're going to show you in 30-second spots on TV commercials that we've run all the way from the Los Angeles County line up to San Luis Obispo County line. We have rebranded ourselves as a Walk, Shop, Wine, and Dine organization, and we've done a lot of live radio this year. We have some core benefits that we have really increased, and that is our educational programming. We're very happy with our educational programming that we've done for the community. Our business advocacy with workforce development, with small business administration, and with having the situation here, we have helped our businesses when the road was closed and helping them get loans. We've done some marketing support this year. We've actually really truly increased our marketing. We've done our collaborations with Ellen Hancock and with our graphic designs local company. Our Economic Vitality Team, Econ Alliance, we've done our collaborating with. We have worked to accomplish more classes for licensing for contractors, payroll classes, things that will help out our business community. Whether you're chamber or non-chamber member, we allow anyone to come to any of our classes for free, and we want people to know that. Even though chamber has a membership, when you come to the chamber classes, they are free. That is one thing we like to provide to our community, and we felt because of our grant funding, we should allow that. We work with Cal Chambers. We try to help them out. This is who our community is and who we are, and we kind of wanted to show, you know, this is the business of who we have. Our social media has increased 3,500 a week. When I started here in 2015, we were less than 100 hits. We get 3,500 hits a week on our Google. So we're very proud of that we feel that we're reaching out to our community and reaching out to people that want to hear about Solvang also. We do not want to interfere with we have a great visitors program. We don't want to interfere with that. We want to teach people how to walk, shop, wine, and dine here, how to spend money here, how to get their tax dollars here. That is our goal, and to be that partner to our business community educational-wise, a partnership in reaching the city, how to do more economic development. Our goals for 2018, some of them have changed a little bit because of your goal changes, but we really want to be that partner in making sure we're working with PG&E right now to make sure that every tree is lighted by next year. We want to work, which we have been, with our tourist-related commercial district in our permitting, which we are working with right now with Holly Owens. We have created a new business package with your Holly, and we feel we give it out very well. We make sure every single person that's a chamber member has a business license, and that's really increased and helped us out. Establish new economic partnerships throughout the county we've done, and we feel we do a good job on that. We've developed and educated the city on what's going on with our workshops and conferences that we're doing, and we want to be that partner with you for the future and how we go. We've won a few awards. We've actually increased our membership, so we're very proud of that, over 100 in the last year, so we're proud of that. We see our vision as really educating and advancing the business community and educating those roles. We would like to be able to work more on more programs. We want to be able to have a wine meet and greet. We want to do a wine and cheese festival, and we're going to work on doing a beer festival with some of our other partners here in town. So those are some of the things that are on our calendar for 2018, 2019, and we're very proud to have done and accomplished what we have. And does anybody have any questions for me?
You done good, Tracy.
No, thank you. I really do appreciate the opportunity to show you what we've done, give you a little selection of what we've done into the community, into the business community at large. And we do want to have we have a great working relationship with Brad and Holly's office and the city office, we feel, and we want to continue to have a better relationship. And how do we help the business community? How do we help those tax dollars get back into the coffers more? How do we help people make sure they know how to shop here locally for everything they need and that? So that is our future goal of this community, and how to help economic development for our businesses so we don't have the same thing in the same stores. And those are our next 3 classes that we're teaching.
Thank you, Tracy.
Okay, thank you.
You done good. City Manager's report.
Okay, in continuing the employee recognition, we had an employee, Tim Keaty, in our maintenance department celebrated 10 years. Actually, today was his official 10-year anniversary. I want to remind everybody that Taste of Solvang starts this week. There's a Wednesday farmers market dinner to kick that off, and it'll be all weekend long with events. You can go to visit Solvang Conference and Visitor Bureau's website to see all of that. And then lastly, there had been discussions. Normally about this time of year, we do a council visioning and updates to our vision. I was curious if the council would like to do a goal-setting workshop as opposed to that this year. Maybe have a special meeting with the council and the public to be invited with a facilitator. I've got an offer from the retired city manager of Santa Maria to do that if there's a desire of the council to do a goal-setting workshop.
I was actually going to bring that up tonight because I even want to know where the goals were that we previously set, where we're at with even making
Yeah, this is
headway on
about
any
the
of them.
time we would normally bring that back, but if you'd like, we can do a facilitated one where the public comes in and we try to do it. Normally, we've just gone through the goals that we've had and
Right.
done them. This would be more to kind of almost blank slate and start a process.
And how are we gonna encourage more public engagement with that?
We'll put it out in the newspaper and see if we can bring. You've got some energy from the annexation crowd that may show up, but yeah, we'll do that. We'll do some ads in the paper, and if there's a desire to do that, we'll start working towards it and find a spot on the calendar where you're all going to be available for that.
It's got my nod.
Yep. Okay.
Sounds like a deal. Is that it? That's it. Okay, next is public communications, written or verbal. This time, please direct comments to the City Council regarding consent calendar items or matters not on the agenda but within the jurisdiction of the council. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes. I have no speaker slips at this time. Does anyone have any public comment they'd wish to make? Seeing none, we'll go on. On to council comments and requests. Would you like to go first, Ms. Jameson?
I just hope that the evacuation order issued for the Montecito is just precautionary and nothing happens.
Ryan?
No comments tonight.
Karen?
I have a number of comments. The first comment is that I rode the metric in the Solvang Century over the weekend, so that's a 70-miler. It was a fantastic race, even though it rained very heavily the last 10 miles, but I thought it was very well organized. other than the rain. Perhaps could have had a little more preparation at the end for the end events for the rain, but other than that, it was great. Let's see, I have a couple of other items. I received an invitation to attend the Santa Barbara County Conservation Blueprint presentation. So I'm going to do that on the 14th. So just to let everyone know, I discussed. I'll go to the one in Santa Barbara at the Botanic Garden. Well, then maybe, okay. Okay. Then I wanted to just make the public aware really quick regarding the upcoming changes for area codes 805/820. So that will become more public in the next several months. So be on the lookout for that. The next thing actually would fall under committees, but I'll just mention it right now because we're not taking any action on this. I did touch bases with the Eastern Management Area Groundwater Sustainability Agency as the City of Solvang's representative because I wanted to make sure that I did not miss a meeting, and I'll be having conversations with staff regarding that. So that was my first outreach to that. Ryan Tucson is the alternate on that committee. And then finally, League of Cities. I did receive communications from them regarding several measures that they would like us to support and to deny, and I'll pass out that paperwork later because we won't be taking action on that at this meeting. And those are my comments.
Neil?
No comment tonight.
Nor do I. No, we have no correspondence received for the council, so we're on to item 4 of the consent agenda. Does anybody wish to pull any of the items off the consent agenda?
I'd like to pull item E.
Which one?
Item E.
E? Okay. Is that for action or just comment?
Just mainly discussion.
Okay. Well, then, why don't you just take a sense. Now, anybody else have any other items they want to pull?
No, I want to make, I'll make a comment on the approval of the draft minutes as amended.
Okay. So
That's item B.
go ahead
So-
with item E.
Okay, so with item E, I guess I'm really happy to hear about the potential grant monies we could be receiving for the meter replacement program. But reading through the grant application, a lot of things it's talking about is also what we're doing to make our water infrastructure more efficient, right? So I'm just trying to backtrack a little bit to about a year ago when we were discussing water rates, and I think that there was some talk over some shrinkage of water through some of our piping infrastructure. And reading through this grant thing, I'm wondering, is there anything we need to be considering today that we could potentially get grant monies for with this? Kind of maybe expand it out a little bit more, but do we have any areas where we really need a new pipe and maybe now's the time to do it while we get 50% of the money for it versus nothing?
Sure. Well, yeah, first of all, I'd like to apologize. The draft grant application in there was, it's draft. We've made a lot of progress in the last week on the application. In fact, it's going to be mailed out hopefully tomorrow afternoon. So there's a lot more.
I wasn't supposed to pull this tonight.
Well, there was a lot more details. It was just, the timing. We found out about the grant program kind of last minute. The Bureau of Reclamation didn't have a long lead time on this to begin with. And then, anyway, so we kind of found out about it last minute. And so we didn't have the application completed very far by the time it had to get in the staff report and come to you. So since that time, quite a bit of additional work's been completed. But yeah, we do have, currently we have about 9% unaccounted for water. And the meter replacement program that we're in process right now, we'll do a lot to reduce that. The other source of unaccounted for water in the past has been hydrant flushing and things of that nature. So beginning in 2017, we created a spreadsheet, and anytime a hydrant is flushed or a main breaks and there's a loss of water, the staff either measure or estimate the amount of water that was discharged. And so that will help us keep track of that. And then also, we don't really have a lot of just general leakage from our pipes. Probably, you know, I would just guess maybe 1% of our unaccounted for water is from just unidentified leaks throughout the system. But this, so because that source is so low, it's very difficult to get grant funding. I have attempted in the past with another agency, attempted to get grant funding for waterline replacement projects to replace old and deteriorated lines with new pipelines. But the amount of water savings generated is pretty minimal, and it's hard to document and demonstrate in a grant application. But we are actually constantly trying to make ourselves aware of any grant program for any public works projects that the city undertakes. So we are regularly looking for grant opportunities. And for example, there is a potential one coming up for whatever upgrades we have to do to the wastewater treatment plant. And so the timing on that is more favorable because we're kind of in the early stages and we can pursue, it's the next round of the integrated water management plan grant. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question.
No, I think so. I just want to make sure that there was, I just know there was some talk about that, but I didn't know how much shrinkage we're really talking about and if there's anything else we should be pursuing at this time to make ourselves more efficient. But other than that, I was totally stoked to
Yeah, so I think this particular type of project is a meter replacement. It's a very common project proposed under this grant program. And the Bureau of Reclamation, it's an attractive type of project to them. So we are optimistic that we will be able to hopefully get a grant. So
perfect.
I neglected to do something and asked the clerk to read the title of that.
Oh,
So I'll read it. It's a USBR program meter replacement grant application, unauthorized agency. That's what the subject was. Chris, is that what you want to speak on this particular item or the water issue later on? Because you just have a water meter.
Yeah.
You want it on this particular item? Well, why don't you come up then and make a statement? But you should do that at public comment time because it's related to this, but that's okay.
That's what I was waiting for.
Well, we had that already.
Would you like me to sit down and wait? Oh, I'm sorry, you already came and went.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, you guys are too quick, sorry. Well, good evening, City Council. It's a pleasure to see you all again, and I want to thank you and encourage you to do more of these smart city types of projects. I think that not only do they save money and increase the efficiency of the city's water infrastructure, but it really builds a platform by which the city can do a great deal more of these types of projects. Smart cities really is the next evolution, not just for economic reasons, but also for government in terms of efficiency. Clearly, for example, if you use these radio-controlled things, you could then have smart sensors in other parts of the city. Would all be tied into some kind of a 5G wireless network? And I think that we're already seeing these types of actions and activities in places like Los Angeles and some of the bigger cities where they use the city light system. They replace the city lights with LEDs, and they have wireless communication networks built on top of the lampposts. And then from there, they're able to do a lot of other interesting internet-based types of activities to help the city run more efficiently and to reduce costs, structural costs long term. So I'm encouraging the city and the city staff to look into a smart city strategy longer term. And there's lots of grants. There's lots of private corporations would love to partner with the city, and I'm sure they would share the revenue with the city in that respect as well. We're doing this in Latin America already. I'm working on a couple of projects in Uruguay, Argentina, and Chile, and in Colombia. And the cities down there are very excited about this because in their cities, they don't even have basic internet. So for them to have smart city types of services and internet at the same time for their schools, for their businesses and things like this, it's a huge step forward. Also, and I'm just throwing this out because this is important too, the city businesses would benefit tremendously from this because now a lot of these internet-based activities and industries can be done here in the valley as opposed to doing them outside the valley. A good example of this would be Appfolio in Santa Barbara. They have it's a $1 billion company, and I think they employ about 300 people, and what they do is they provide wireless platform applications and services to solve simple problems like real estate management, or in the case of MindBody up in San Luis Obispo, another $1 billion company, they do a simple app for hair salons to manage their businesses. So there's no reason why something like that couldn't be done here in the valley. It'd be a clean technology industry. It would employ a lot of people and keep people here spending money here and making our city a stronger city. Thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Is there anyone else wish to speak on this particular item? Okay, we'll come back to the council. On the approval of the draft minutes, Karen. You want
Well, she was just saying
I
that.
was just commenting, there were some changes to the minutes prior to the council meeting this evening, and I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
Okay.
You're talking
Well-
about the minutes from the last,
Yes.
not these minutes,
No,
but the
minutes from the
previous.
February 26th
Right.
meeting.
Okay.
Although those comments weren't in this minutes?
Yes.
Okay. So those would be the changes you add then? Okay. All right, then if there's no other discussion on the consent agenda, can I have a motion accepting the consent calendar?
So I'll make the motion to accept A through E.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Will you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Toussaint,
Yes.
Jameson,
Yes.
Wait,
Yes.
Zimmerman,
Yes.
Mayor Richardson.
Yes, and that passes with a 5-0. On to the regular agenda, item 5.
Item 5, water supply update.
Staff report?
Alrighty. Good evening, Mayor Richardson, council members, Matt Vanderlinden, your Public Works Director and City Engineer. And I will just launch right into it. And of course, as I'm going through, feel free to ask questions as I go if something comes to mind. And then, of course, at the end, there'll be additional time for questions and comment. So by way of outline, I'm going to be discussing our current projects and programs, our long-range strategic planning, our current water supply conditions here in California and Santa Barbara County, and our 2018 water supply projection. So that's for this calendar year. Our water supply planning is basically functions on a calendar year schedule. We'll talk about drought restrictions and our potential supplemental water purchase. So occasionally I'm asked, since we've been in this continuing drought, what is the city of Solvang doing to address the severe drought conditions? And so again, we'll talk about all these a little bit more, but of course we're doing our long-range strategic planning. We're working on we do 2-year water supply projections. We currently have our stage 1 drought restrictions, and we implement with city council approval supplemental water purchases as needed. We do water supply capital projects, and we continue our water conservation programs. So I'm sure you've all seen my past reports about the HCA South well. So we call it the HCA South because it's in Hans Christian Andersen Park, and we drilled one well in the middle of the park and one well at the south end. So to differentiate from those two, we call one the middle well and one the south well. Anyway, so that well is in service now. It's been a big help to us through 2017. We also completed just under a year ago, or last spring, a refurbishment of well 4. We relined the casing of that well and installed a new pump to dramatically extend the life of that well. That well was constructed in the early 1950s, and so it's been serving the city really well, but had some major problems, and now we've extended the life of that well by probably 40 to 50 years. Also, well 22 upgrade project is under construction right now. We haven't actually broken ground yet, but the contractor is coordinating with all the vendors and material suppliers and providing what we refer to as submittals, which are documents showing the different pieces of equipment and so forth that they're planning to use on the project for the city's review and approval. So, and some of the equipment is being ordered. And then, of course, we do plan to add some additional river wells in the future. And with the County of Santa Barbara, the City of Solvang is participating with other agencies and the county in a county-wide stormwater resources plan. And so we plan to kind of springboard off of that. We would plan future stormwater capture projects. So those are projects like infiltration basins or detention basins. You may have seen or heard of infiltration chambers under parking lots and like shopping centers in certain dry areas. And dry wells, which are wells that have a filtering mechanism, and then it's like a well that's filled with rock, and it allows the water, surface stormwater, to infiltrate back down into the groundwater basin. So this county stormwater resources plan looks at all those types of technology and identifies different opportunities throughout the county for doing projects like this. And one of the projects that was selected for further investigation is actually the possible use of the detention basin below Skip Mesa to siphon water off of that into a dry well. And so that's a project that you may see in a future capital improvement plan. Oh, it's kind of like that, yeah. But vertically. Yeah, yeah. So this is just a photo of the well casing material. So as I mentioned, well 4 has an old steel casing that was seriously corroded. And what we did was we sleeved inside that old casing this new PVC casing, and those little slits in the PVC pipe. You can order this pipe with a variety of different sizes, depending on the gravel pack that you place around it and also the characteristics of the adjacent soil. So the gravel pack is like a fine and coarse sand, and it's sized to hold back the soil from getting sucked, the fine grains getting sucked into the well. And that fine and coarse sand is sized larger than those slits, so they don't get pulled into the well either. But anyway, so the 5 wells we drilled a few years ago were constructed with these PVC casings, and the lining on well 4 was like this. I was just going to mention, obviously, you know, PVC is non-corrosive. It's not as strong as the steel casing, but it's more than adequate for wells up to about 750 feet deep, and all of our wells are only like 500 feet deep, is around the deepest. So this would not be an appropriate material if you have a well like some of ID1's wells are about 1,000 feet. You couldn't use this, but for a 500 deep well, it's more than sufficient, and you don't have to worry about any corrosion problems. So this is just one of the pages of the set of construction drawings for well 22 upgrade, and in the middle it just shows a cross section, the ground surface and the reinforced concrete wellhead, and then the wellhead discharge piping and the column and the pump and so forth. So regarding water conservation, we are continuing our landscape rebate program and our low-flow toilet rebate program. Both of those programs we anticipate continuing on for the next several years. And I just by way of reminder, in 2015 and 16, we participated in a county-wide landscape rebate program with other agencies and the county, the Santa Barbara County Water Agency. And Solvang, during that time period, we issued 42 rebates and had the highest per capita conservation in the county. And then we continue with a modest public education and outreach every year regarding the drought and water conservation. As far as long-range strategic planning, in 2015, we prepared our first ever water supply management plan. When we first prepared that, the primary focus was providing a reliable source of long-term water supply and at the least cost. But now we've realized that we need to really look at the water quality, because the quality of the water that we're supplying, the quality of the potable water we're supplying affects whether people soften their water and then discharge brine waste to the sewer system, and then that creates a big problem for a wastewater treatment plant. So just by way of mentioning our study on the wastewater treatment plant, we're making really good progress, and so probably in about a month and a half, you'll see something on that from the staff. But anyway, so this update we're working on right now, we're considering the water quality as well as the water supply. And every year we do our water supply planning. We start in the fall after we receive the first initial allocation determination from Department of Water Resources, the state water allocation. And then we not only look at the year ahead, but we also always try to plan for the year after that. And so our goal typically, and has been through the drought, is to try to have a couple hundred acre-feet of carryover water at the end of the year, of state carryover water, in the event that the next year's state water allocation is really low. We have some water carrying forward each year. And so that's a challenge, since we don't have a crystal ball and we can't control the weather and so forth. But anyway, we do that. Also, we're continuing in the process with CCWA and the county to reacquire 300 acre-feet of the suspended Table A state water. That's ongoing. It looks like it'll be wrapped up in 2019, hopefully by the end of 2019. And then our water ad hoc committee. And one thing I was going to mention, last year one of the goals was to look at water banking, but this year this year the San Luis Reservoir was really high because of the high state water allocation in 2017. The San Luis Reservoir water levels were really high, and so there was the potential coming into this winter, if we had a lot of rain, that the San Luis Reservoir could spill and we could lose some of that water. And so we implemented an exchange with ID1. We exchanged 285 acre-feet. So basically they used 285 acre-feet of our state water, so now it was no longer subject to potential spill. And they agreed to return that water over the next 2 years. And so you'll see, so staff is suggesting that the ad hoc committee pursue a long-term agreement on exchange agreement similar to that, but something on a long-term basis. That would be just voluntary for each agency. So in a particular year, if they had some situation they couldn't do it or we couldn't do it, it's just totally voluntary. But have an agreement that's a long-term agreement, so whenever the need arises, the staff can just go ahead and
I meant to bring this up at my comment. Since we have Karen aboard and she's familiar with ID1, I was wondering if we should bring back the ad hoc water committee and consider exchanging her and Neil, or putting her on the committee and asking Neil to step down. Is that any problem with anybody, or Neil? Karen?
I think that we should put this as an agenda item for our next meeting.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Do we agree to that? Where's our agenda guy? There he is. It looks like we have an agreement. To put that on the next agenda? Is that a yes? Thank you.
Alrighty, so continuing on, because of the high state water allocation in 2017, we were able to return the 350 acre feet of Antelope Valley East Kern Water Agency water that we had basically rented. And so that was great. We have we owe no one any water, which is really good, because Santa Barbara, Montecito, I'm not sure about Carpinteria, but they still owe a lot of exchange water back. Anyway, we'll take a look at our water supply pie chart, but every year we work on our water supply spreadsheet. It's the information in that goes into the pie chart. And in 2017, we had 246 acre feet of carryover water into 2018. Plus half of that 285 that we exchanged with ID1, they'll be returning that 140 acre feet this year. And in 2018, the DWR state water allocation right now is 20%, so that means we're only going to get 300 acre feet. And we've been told that there is a chance that could be reduced down to 10%. So it depends what happens with these next week or so of storms, but there is that possibility that it could be reduced. And so what we've done is, because of that possibility, we basically shifted gears about 2 weeks ago and have adjusted our 2018 water supply planning based on that worst case scenario of possibly 10%. So the water supply pie chart that you'll see in a minute is based on a 10% allocation. So if it stays at 20 or if it goes up, we're looking a lot better. But if it goes down to 10%, we would project 0 acre feet of carryover into next year. The only thing that we would have is ID1 would be returning 145 acre feet of that exchange water in 2019. But anyway, because of that situation, that's why the staff has included in this in the report the discussion of purchase of supplemental water. So one of the questions staff has for City Council is if you would like us to ask Palmdale to return the 55 acre feet of exchange water that we exchanged with them in 2011. So the tricky thing with the exchange water is, on the years of higher allocation, typically agencies want to return the water, but that's not when we need it, when it's a higher year allocation. So if we wait till next year, if it's really dry next year, they might not be able to return it. But they are able to return it. CCWA has contacted them. They are able to return that water to us in 2018 if we want it. So that's one of the items we need council direction on.
Would we be reducing our pumping from our wells by using that 55?
Yeah.
Would it make a difference?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Instead of taking it from the wells, we take the.
That's a 55 acre feet is close to what our winter monthly demands are in the winter. You know, so that's. Yeah. Okay, and regarding our current water supply conditions, this is probably no news to most of you, but severe drought conditions continue in Santa Barbara County. Lake Kachuma is at a low level. Oroville Reservoir is at a low level, and currently the state water allocation is only 20%. So this is the U.S. Drought Monitor map. Shows parts of the Central Coast, and it's kind of centered around Santa Barbara, Ventura, and Kern County are in severe drought conditions. So hopefully that'll change here with these storms. But this is the county's report for rainfall and the reservoirs, and you'll see, well, there's a I don't have my little pointer, but there's a. I'll just go up there. So this number here is the average rainfall throughout the county. And then I'll point out this number here. So the average rainfall in the county is still only about 29%, and this was this update was from March 2nd, so it doesn't include the inch that we got last week. But and then Kachuma Reservoir is only at 39% of capacity. So this graph here, the light blue shaded area is the average, the long-term average conditions for San Luis Reservoir, and the dark blue line shows the current conditions. So so there is relatively low probability that the San Luis Reservoir would spill this spring. And this is the same graphic for the Lake Oroville Reservoir. So again, the light blue shaded area shows the average conditions. Interestingly enough, the black line there that spikes through the top blue line, that's last year's conditions, and that's when the reservoir spilled and all the damage occurred. But right now we're at that dark blue line, so the reservoir has a 3.5 million acre feet capacity, and we're at under 1.4, under 1.5 million acre feet. So it's not looking good. They've been intentionally keeping that reservoir lower than what they typically might, because they do not want to risk any possibility of the reservoir filling and spilling again and damaging all the work that's still under construction. So it'll be about another 9 months or so before they complete all the repair work of the spillways. And so the bottom left corner is it's 42% of capacity. So then the water supply pie chart. So the dark blue is our, again, this is based on the 10% allocation, so that's 150 acre feet. The light blue is that 246 of carryover water from 2017 into 2018. The green there, the 140, that's the return water from ID1. The purple is our existing river wells. Because the lake is, Lake Kachuma is at 39%, we anticipate at this point that they'll be able to do releases down the river, and that hopefully we'll be able to pump our river wells throughout the rest of this year. The sort of salmon color is our existing upland wells, and so that includes our new HCA South well. And that little sliver, the line that shows 0, that's well 22, which unfortunately won't be completed and in service till February of 2019. So not this summer, but the next summer it'll be there to help us. And well 22 will be one of our highest producing wells. So right now, well 3 along the river and then well 22 will be the 2 highest producing. And then the kind of the orangey yellow color, that's during this month of March. When we were planning this, we didn't know if it was going to rain or not, so we anticipated possibly the need to purchase some ID1 water because we're trying to keep state water off this whole month of March and reserve more of that for the summer months when we have the peak demands.
That 55 acre feet wouldn't fill in for the 60 there from Palmdale?
Well, no, the problem is
Plumbing.
most of that is in November during the state water shutdown.
Right.
So that Palmdale water, if we get it returned, that's state water, and we wouldn't be able to take delivery of
It's the
that
plumbing,
in
right, yeah.
November, yeah. So it would help a tiny bit, but it would just shave a little off of that. And so this shows a condition where we have 0 deficit, but absolutely no carryover. So that's going to make it tough in 2019. So, and this is based on a projected demand for 2018 of 1,250 acre feet. So just by way of reminder, in 2015 and 2016, our demand was under 1,100 acre feet each year. Now, we had the stage 2 drought restrictions in place, so with the penalties, so everybody cut way back. But in 2017, we had the wet year, and it went up to 1,182. So it was still under 1,200. And so this year, it's basically the same demand, because most of Skip Mesa was already done, and the other big projects were, you know, in place, like Solvang Senior Apartments on Maple. So we thought, well, you know, people might think the drought's over and or whatever, because we had all that rain last year, and use more. So just to be conservative, we projected 1,250 acre feet. But as you see in the staff report, for the months of January and February, the usage just went way up. Now, we did have those 2 hot weeks in January and 2 hot weeks, or approximately 2 hot weeks in both months. And so that usually drives, you know, the usage up for irrigation and so forth. But so we're hoping that doesn't continue, because if it does, we're going to be in trouble. So that's the pie chart summary. So again, just summarizing our drought restriction history. You know, Solvang declared the stage 1 drought emergency back in January 13th of 2014. On July 28th of that same year, we had to go to stage 2 drought restrictions with the penalties, and those remained in place until April 24th of 2017. So just less than 11 months ago, the City Council rescinded the stage 2 restrictions, and we kept the restrictions at stage 1, which are the voluntary restrictions. And so staff feels the City Council should consider reinstituting the stage 2 restrictions. And this is a little brief history of our past supplemental water purchases. So in 2013, shows those purchases. We were able to purchase 707 acre feet from Goleta Water District at a really good price, and that purchase was intended to be a 2-year purchase. But then, unfortunately, you may remember, 2013, I think it was, yeah, 2000, maybe it was 2013 or 14, I'm forgetting now, but that was the record dry year in California. And so we made that extra purchase, but then got kind of hit while we were down with that super dry year. But so then we ended up purchasing more water in 2014, and in 2015 we did the exchange with Antelope Valley East Kern Water Agency. And right now we're kind of at the initial non-committed step of a 260 acre feet purchase of supplemental water through CCWA. So staff is asking for additional direction from the City Council on that. The Biggs West Gridley Water District, those are the rice farmers that we purchased water from back in 2014. I just had some emails today from CCWA. It doesn't look like that deal is going to work out, but they have a few other deals that they're working on with other state water agencies. And so the 260 acre feet, I should just mention, the way staff arrived at that is when you, well, in particular, the deal, when you purchase water north of the Sacramento Bay Delta, San Joaquin Bay Delta there are carriage losses of moving the water through the Delta. And so typically it's around 25 to 30%. So if you purchase 400 acre feet of water, you pay for 400, but you only get delivered 300. So you have to factor that into the cost that you're paying, you know. Anyway, so the idea was to try to get close to 200 acre feet with a potential purchase, supplemental water purchase. So to kind of recap, and summarize, staff's requesting city council direction regarding return of that 55 acre feet from Palmdale Water District. We're also asking for city council direction whether or not to bring back a resolution to implement stage 2 drought restrictions. We're asking direction from city council on either a quantity of supplemental water or a cost threshold that you would authorize staff to go up to a certain dollar amount. So for example, that 260 acre feet at a price of $725 an acre foot would be about 185,000, so under 200,000. So that just gives you kind of a reference number. If you wanted to authorize us, somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 or 250,000 or something in that range.
Do we have that money in the water fund? Or do we have to get it out of the general fund? The 200?
You would have it currently in the water reserves,
fund?
yeah.
But you could use general fund or water fund to pay for it, right?
Yeah, either one. You have reserves in both.
And then the last item is, as I mentioned earlier, we're suggesting that the ad hoc committee pursue a long-term exchange agreement with ID1, similar to what we did last year. So that concludes my staff report, and I'm available for questions.
Are there any questions of the staff report?
Yes. Can you go over the ID1 return, as compared to our ID1 purchase?
Sure. So we exchange state water with them, which you may be aware, state water is usually it's the highest quality water supply source. So, and it generally produces the least amount of, or results in the least amount of residential water softening by our residents. So that's our first choice water supply source as far as quality. So since we were giving them state water, we would like state water in return back from them. So with the 20% allocation, they're actually just able to give us 140 acre feet back of state water, because they have their state water allocation is 500 acre feet plus a 200 acre foot buffer. So they're at 700 acre feet of state water. We're at 1,500.
That was 300 acre feet buffer. Is it 300 or is it 200?
No, it's a 10% buffer, yeah. So,
Oh, okay.
so my understanding is when the city filed a lawsuit regarding state water, that they wanted ID1 to be financially responsible for the full 10% drought buffer, and so that's why Solvang has. So the total between ID1 and Solvang was 2,000 acre feet. And with the 10% buffer, that's 200 more acre feet. But based on the lawsuit and the settlement and everything, we have 1,500, but no drought buffer. They have 500 with the 200 acre feet drought buffer. So basically they get 700 acre feet. If they get 100% allocation, it's 700. So 20% is 140. 20% of 700. So they'll have just enough to give us state water, state water to return that full amount to us this year. Now, if the allocation gets reduced, we still need that 140 acre feet of water. So we haven't actually worked out the details yet, but we've kind of tentatively discussed that the first so if the state water allocation drops to 10%, just for example, then they would give us 70 acre feet of state water back, and the other 70 feet would be their well water, which we would plan to take back at the Zone 2 interconnect by Alamo Pintado Road and Ladan Road, or Layden Road. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, but I always call it Ladan. But anyway, so that's the situation. And our agreement with them, because Solvang does have twice the amount of state water entitlement as them, we knew that they wouldn't be able to return the full amount that they borrow from us necessarily in 1 year. And so we came up with a 2-year plan, and they felt comfortable with that. And so does that answer your question, or?
Just real quick, because you kind of touched on the quality of the water affecting the softening that then trickles down to the treatment plant.
Right.
Is that how does that relationship work? Are you do the softeners basically just use less salt automatically because they're being fed higher quality water, or you're saying that less people tend to go out and get water softeners when we
That's-
provide them better water?
Yeah, that's a really good question,
Mhm.
and we don't know exactly the answer, but here's what happens. So the state water is lower in calcium and magnesium.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're running more state water, people can actually tell the difference in their homes from the taste and just the mineral deposits, I guess. And so some water softeners actually have sensors that they only regenerate when all the resin beads are bonded up with the calcium. The resin beads in the water softener are bonded up with the calcium and the magnesium. And only when it's fully utilized or there's no more capacity left, then it regenerates. And so the ones that have, and that's the ones that we're requiring everyone to install, is the ones with that sensor technology. So those ones will automatically, just by the programming of the control system, regenerate less frequently, and therefore, and when they regenerate, they use a salt brine to sort of rinse those resin beads and pull the calcium and magnesium off, but then all that gets flushed to the sewer line. So the ones with the sensors will automatically use less. Other people that don't have those, they tell us that they can tell. I've had several people call me since in the last 7 years saying they can tell when we're running more state water, and they can go and shut the water softener off completely. So that'll save money, because every time it regenerates, in addition to producing that brine waste, it's flushing a bunch of water, that was potable water that ran through the machine, now into the sewer. So that's kind of like wasted water. So they save money on their water bill by just turning it off if they know there's a lot of state water. So this past year in 2017, we produced a couple press releases, and we had notices on the water bill letting everyone know, hey, we're running high percentage, between 80 and 90% state water for several months. And so that also encouraged people to shut their water softeners off. But it's not, but there's no exact way to, tell exactly
Mhm.
the.
It would seem like for most of the laymen, just if you have a softener, that if it's a higher efficiency one, because I don't know how many people are actually going to mess around with toggling their
Right.
softeners. So it seemed like more people we would see more of a savings just in the higher efficiency softeners that are automatically doing it for someone, kind of like on cruise control mode versus.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, so we do have our water softener upgrade rebate program going on right now, which is, it's actually, although it does save water, it is a water conservation activity, but it's more to help our wastewater treatment plant. So that program is being funded by the wastewater budget, not the water budget, or the water fund, rather than.
Karen?
Yeah, I've got one more question. So the ID1 return, does that have any restrictions on it pertaining to the shut-off of state water?
Yeah, so in the November shutdown of the state water system, ID1 would not be able to return any state water to us during that month. So with our water supply planning, our spreadsheet, we look at month by month. We look at all the different water supply sources and how many hours per month we need to run each well, and how much state water will take, and how much if we need additional ID1 water. and if we purchase the supplemental water, how much we would use each month. And so one of the things we have to consider is, right now, they're actually pumping lots of state water into Lake Achuma, but there were a couple years, I think it was 2013 and 14, where the state water allocation was so low that the South Coast agencies, they weren't pumping a lot of state water into Lake Achuma. And so once you get past Vandenberg Air Force Base, the amount of state water being used in the pipeline was minimal. ID1 and Solvang were using just a little bit, and that's when we had the taste and odor problems, the Jasmine and MIB problems, and which is not a health concern, but it has that moldy smell and taste, so or kind of mossy, moldy kind of thing. So what we've tried to do since then is kind of front load the summer months, plan to keep those summer months high in state water usage, so that we'll have the maximum flow going through the pipeline to keep the water, basically as fresh as possible. And yeah, anyway, so.
Regarding when you flush the hydrants, do you advertise the fact that we're flushing and the possibility of there's a special sale on flushed hydrant water for contractors?
No, we don't do that. Well, for several years during the drought, we did no flushing. Of course, so for like, I think 3 years, we did no hydrant flushing. Unless it was absolutely necessary to, like, I think one time we had to flush to
Right.
maintain our chlorine residual in the disinfectant in the system. We had noticed it was dropping in one area, and so we flushed to pull that back up. But in 2017, we did, since we had the higher water availability, we did flush several hydrants. And right now, we're in the middle of finishing up an update of our water system hydraulic model to analyze our water system. And so one of the things you do to calibrate your hydraulic model is to run fire flow tests in the field, where we actually we have pressure gauges, and we measure the drop in the pressure in the system, and we measure the flow coming out of the hydrant. And then in the model, they model that exact same thing. They have like a computer hydrant in there, and they'll open that up and pull a certain amount of water out of that, and they'll watch the pressure drop in the system. And so they adjust certain factors in the model to match the real world, test that we did. So that way they know the model's calibrated correctly. But if you're interested, you can make an appointment, and I'll go into it in more depth. It's
I
probably
think
kind
he's
of
saying
boring,
when you do that, see if any contractors need water when you're flushing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. The question is, if you're going to plan to do that, maybe you could make notice or outreach to contractors that we would sell them the water at a reasonable price for them.
Yeah. Well, you remember 750 gallons, or 748 is
Right.
1 HCF.
Right.
And so if you have a 4,000 or 5,000 gallon water tanker,
Right.
you're
that's
talking
fine.
maybe $30 or something.
Yeah,
it's-
you're right about
it's
that.
not-
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not that much, so.
Is there any other questions?
I had some questions. So with regard to purchasing any additional allocation, is there a deadline on when we would need to make that decision by?
Yeah, we would need, well, all of these deals, everybody that's in need of water for this year is already out looking, trying to make deals. So, yeah, we definitely need direction from the city council tonight. Basically, we don't know the exact timing of every deal, because there's actually, in addition to Biggs West Gridley, there's 3 other agencies that CCWA is talking to, and all of those agencies have different schedules for their board meetings and stuff to enter into these agreements. And at this point, I don't know which one of those deals is going to pan out and work out. And Solvang is like the small guy in the whole thing, because Carpinteria, Santa Barbara, and Montecito, they're purchasing large amounts of supplemental water. So they don't. I try to respect that, and we try not to try to dictate to them, you know, since we're really the small purchaser in the deal. But anyway, so all those, there's different timing for each of those, and the executive director, Ray Stokes, executive director of CCWA, he's actively working on trying to bring these to fruition, but the timing of everything is very unpredictable. But it's basically all going to happen within the next, you know, like 2 to 6 weeks. So between now and the end of April, everything will be set. So that's why you can give us, like, for example, if it rains really heavy in the next 2 weeks and, you know, the allocation doesn't get dropped, or the allocation goes up, you can give us direction regarding that tonight. We're hoping, you know, say don't spend more than this amount on supplemental water, and you know, whatever other, you know, caveats you want to add on to that.
So we could stipulate, for example, if we don't get any additional rain, the allocation is going down to 10%, purchase X acre feet. If it
Yeah, or give
stays
us
the
a
same
dollar-
or goes up, or
yes,
okay,
exactly. Or give us a dollar threshold.
got it.
Karen?
I'm just looking at scenarios that concern me where we have water sources with the potential of being cut off. So I'm not going to make the motion right now, but I'm looking at every bullet point there and saying yes, 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 yes. And just to have somebody come up with a number for giving you all the authorization for supplemental water purchase.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, we'll go to the public for comment. I have no speaker slips. Does anyone in the public wish to comment on this particular agenda item? Come forward and state your name, please.
My name is Denise Elamine. I am a resident in Skid Mesa. I have been working with Matt regarding water usage in Skid Mesa. My comment tonight is that it doesn't rain a lot, but it has been raining, and our sprinklers are working when it's raining. I've told Matt about this, and he brings up the 735 equals 1. But if we're going to conserve water, I want to conserve 1, and I don't want my sprinklers going when it's raining.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Matt's got the message. Thank you. Are there any other public comment? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to the council for action. Who'd like to start? Gil?
I had
Okay.
just another thing I was question about was for January and February numbers. I'm looking at this chart here where it's comparing 2018 usage against 2013 and 17. Better? Okay. So, yeah. So, what I was trying to figure out is, I'd just like to know what some of the key contributing factors are to our current usage being up a decent chunk higher than 2017 and 2013. I know that we lifted stage 2 drought restrictions, so we're no longer penalizing people for their usage. You also have, you know, some additional rain, so maybe people are using more water for that. We had the fire, and then everyone's using water to spray down the ash and things like that. And then we also have these new meters that are registering more accurately the actual usage. But to just call it on just the meters seems quite dramatic for our old meters to just not be registering that much water.
Yeah, no, it's not. That's, the new meters are just a small fraction
Right.
of it.
So just wondering, do we kind of have like what the key areas are that are leading
Well-
to the higher usage today that we're seeing?
Sure, I think you mentioned one of the things is that there's no penalties. So, and the other thing was the weather. The 2 hot weeks, or approximately 2 hot weeks in January and 2 hot weeks in February. So if you can imagine, pretty much every summer, it's hot, right? People are irrigating. Of course, occasionally we have a heat wave or whatever, and it goes from the, low 90s to the upper 90s or whatever. That makes a little bit of difference. But the winter months, when you have a heat wave, that makes a big difference, because everyone's like, oh, and it's there, and we had so little rain. If you had a light rain every week or two, that would have a helpful effect. But December was really dry, January was very dry, and February was super dry. So you have those weather conditions, plus the no penalties. You see that big jump. And again, those conditions are going to make a more drastic difference in usage in the winter months as compared to the summer months. So I don't think that trend, I don't think we'll see that trend stay that, significantly different throughout the whole year. But it's just kind of alarming right at the start of the year when you're trying to plan for the rest of the year. It's like,
When you compare it year over year, but if you look at the usage, starting with November, it's just a decrease in usage month over month. It started at like 39,000 units in November, 37 in December, 36 in January, and 30 in February. So it's just a continuation. So it must be weather related, because all the weather was good at that time. But year-over-year comparison, I don't think is accurate in those conditions.
Yeah, but it's not really a fair way of looking at it, considering that the chart's comparing 2018 and we only have 2 months of.
Right, but if you look at usage is flowing down, starting in November, so. So it must be associated.
yeah, the weather definitely has a lot to do with it. Yeah, both the hot and the no rain.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of got a double whammy thing
Yeah.
going.
And I think people have become a little less careless, or more careless
Less careful.
with the use of their water. And a lot of people put lawns in, put turf in during the summertime, thinking, oh, good, the drought's over.
Yeah.
And they just haven't been acting responsibly.
We are planning, as part of our water conservation efforts and public education and outreach, to have some messages in the water bills, and also do like a press release.
Mm-hmm.
That the drought
Media
is not
release.
over.
Right. Yeah.
So,
we're planning on that. But
But what's interesting is every time we start talking about a drought situation, it's raining outside. The same thing last year, when we declared a drought, stage 2, it was raining outside. So here we go,
But let's take these questions one at a time so we can follow them straight through, and let's start with the request of Palmdale return of the 55 acre feet. Should we discuss that first? Do we want to do that? Your recommendation is to do that, is that correct?
Yeah, I'm in full support of it, and I think we should get the water while we can versus, next year could be
Taking a
worse,
risk.
and they can't give it to us.
Can I have a quick motion just to cover all these
So
things?
I'd like to make the motion that we, I like requesting the Palmdale return.
Well, let's do them one at a time so we can discuss.
Oh, one at a
each
time?
Yeah.
Okay, so then I'll make the motion to request the Palmdale return of
Okay. Is there a
55.
second?
I'll second
Yeah.
it.
Is all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass 5-0. On to stage 2 drought restrictions.
With stage 2 drought restrictions, I think conservation's something that we always need to be pushing out there. We gave a little bit of reprieve on the penalties while we could, but we should probably consider re-noticing and educating people on water conservation, and consider implementing stage 2 drought restrictions.
I'll second that, and I not to consider it, I think we should
Just
put it
do
out there and make it a stage 2 drought restriction.
And I'll just make the comment that I'm completely 110% against a stage 2 drought restriction.
And then just go ahead and explain, please, why.
Well, let him explain why he made that
Yeah.
comment.
Why are we in a stage 2 drought restriction? Why are we going for it? What's the
Well,
point?
so one advantage, or if managing the finances of the water fund, would be that if we continue using water at an unsustainable rate, then it's going to result in the city having to purchase additional water, which is going to come at a cost to the ratepayers. So if everyone can conserve a bit, then it could prevent those purchases.
It's just a reactive stance. It's not a proactive stance. Proactive would be that we set up the long-term agreement with ID1, or just know that we have enough groundwater to sustain us until we come to an agreement, mixed with, say, the state water allocation that we get. I think there's a way to solve this problem without having to go through all these restrictions. I mean, we're talking 12 to 1,500 acre feet of water, and we're making our life's purpose to sit around this water thing when really it's very simple. It's a very simple thing for the city of Solvang, at least it could be. The whole scheme of state of California, that's another story with the state water project. But if we just take 100% of our allocation and just use it when we get it, and we have our neighbors next door where we can keep the money in the family in the valley, or deal with the water they have. I mean, it's really not that big of a deal, I guess.
I have two questions. Number one, are we within the state drought regulation right now? They have a drought restrictions.
It's a voluntary 25, is it, Matt? 25% voluntary is what the states
The
is.
state lifted all their restrictions. Well,
Well, they issued new
Same.
restrictions. The
Yeah.
governor did, didn't he?
Right, he left that in there.
And do we meet those restrictions already?
Not with the first 2 months of the year, no, because those are over what we were in 2013.
Okay.
So we're not headed towards meeting that requirement.
Well, then the second question is what are restrictions without enforcement, and what kind of penalties?
Well,
What
this-
are the penalties for stage 2?
Well, no, if we institute
Oh,
our drought restrictions,
For us.
yeah, why have them if we're not going to institute penalties for violating the restrictions? There's no teeth in it.
yeah, okay. Right, so
So-
stage 1, there's no penalties.
Right,
It's
there's no
about
penalties,
people
so,
to, hey, watch
you
your
know,
use, conserve.
right now, I recall when we first started this, that the public came forward and was opposed to any kind of penalties, and we, after a fashion, found out that the folks were conserving, so we pulled the penalties off, and they conserved continually. So the question is, will they continue with these restrictions and without penalty? You know, so far they haven't. Do we need to do an outreach to let them know that we're considering penalties?
Sure, that's.
We'd like them to honor the
Yeah, and
conservation they had before.
Just to be straight, we can't pull the trigger immediately. It's a whole new billing structure that we have to have
That's correct.
our finance system
Right.
put into place, so it
Right.
takes time to put a penalty structure back on the bill. So, yeah, I think I heard Councilmember Toussaint say we should start the process to get get that information out that people need to start conserving, or the penalties will come.
Well, and that's what I was referring to when I said consider. I fully agree with what Neil was saying with regard to taking a more proactive approach. But unfortunately, right now we're having to react, and we don't have a deal with some of these other items. So we can't make decisions today on a future deal that we would like to have.
Until we put ourselves in that position, will we be able to perform? That's just the way
Yeah.
it is.
So I agree. I'm just, it's just what do we do
Yeah.
right now? So what I'd like to do is further outreach, and then if we brought up on the agenda maybe at the next meeting when we see if we get any more rain. I mean, for all we know, we could get a sudden surge of rain and up north or whatever, and our state allocation goes up. But at that time, then we could discuss potential stage 2, or if we what that rate structure is, because there's also the penalty rates that go along with the.
Yeah, it's all
Yeah,
defined.
yeah, we did codify that, so it's, just give you, so residential is 0 to 50% of your usage would be at no penalty. Greater than 50% of your usage is 2 times, so twice the, so it's $3.85 a unit, be twice that for anything over 50% of the use you had in 2013. And then the second month, if you're over, it's a $500 penalty on top of that. So
Got it.
so that's the base structure for residential. We codified that. We had a 3-tier system back when we had our stage 2, but then the council decided, let's put it a little more simple and put it in the code. And so that's what the residential penalty is right now if you go to stage 2. So
Got
it's, you get up to 50% usage from 2013 is just normal rate. Anything over is 2 times, and then there's, if you do it a second month, then it's a $500 penalty.
So we wouldn't revisit those policies; it would just go back.
Well,
to
that is code, so you'd have to, I guess you could,
Oh, I see. You'd
as
have
a
to go-
council, change that, but yeah, that's what you did put in the city code for residential penalties for stage 2.
I'd like to see us hang loose for another month and see, to make the public aware that we're considering these restrictions, number one. And number two, we may have some rain that will help us.
Yeah.
Right.
And so we might not have to
Good
go
plan.
into a
So-
stage 2 drought.
Yeah, both this item and the next one are kind of contingent upon that 20%. If it gets down, then obviously there's a little more desperate need for it. If it stays at 20%, Matt thinks we can eke through the year.
Right.
So,
I actually, we do have an ID1 rep in the audience right now, and I know it's not customary to actually take advice from individuals during the meeting, but I would certainly like to have Mr. Clay's input on stage 2 drought restrictions. And I'm not sure if he's involved in the ad hoc committees with Ryan and Neil, but if you'd be willing to come up and let us know where ID1 stands on this.
We haven't really brought it up in detail. Personally, I was not at the last board meeting. I tend to agree with Neil that we try to take less reactionary moves and kind of, see what we can do with what we have. But I wish I could say that, yeah, we were going to move into the stage 2. We actually, and I think you guys know this, when the state issued the 25%, our customers, I think it averaged at 40%. The pendulum swung so far that we actually want to sell water. Honestly, that's the truth of it. Our customers reacted double to what we really thought they would. So I don't want to say it backfired, because conservation is good, but honestly, we don't sell water, and it's that cycling up that's no good for anyone, and you would know that very well. So personally, I'm opposed to that particular drought restriction, but I can't speak for the board as a whole right now. I don't know if that helps or hurts or.
No, it helps me a lot, 'cause I just wanted to, specifically get out of Neil why he was so adamantly against it, and I felt that his explanation was very rational after listening to that, and then just the no, and then hearing more from Ryan, and then hearing from you, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Clay. So shall we table stage 2 drought restrictions until,
So what I'm hearing you say is you'd like us to do public education and outreach for the next month or so, and wait to see, until we get to like maybe middle of April, if there's any change in the state water allocation and what the rainfall is, and then if it improves, then maybe we don't need to come back to
That's
to
what I was
bring the
looking for.
topic back,
It's
but if it
education now, and then we see where things are.
yeah, and if it doesn't look good, then we'll bring it back.
Right.
And are there particular places that we can notice, such as the member of our audience that says that her sprinklers go on when it's raining? Because I've also seen sprinklers on at banks and shopping areas when it's raining, and the sprinklers are just going full force here in Solvang.
Yeah, sure. Well, that was one of the, that's one of the drought restrictions that was not lifted after the state lifted. Yeah, so there's certain things, but you're not supposed to hose down pavement unless it's a health and safety issue. And you're not supposed to irrigate when it's raining, or within, I think it's 48 hours or 2 days or something of the event. So a lot of people don't have the moisture sensors or the control systems that are tied into the satellite weather system. And so it's all manual. And so they have to be paying attention and think, oh, it's going to rain and I better turn it off. You know, that's basically what I do at my house. It's been, off for a long time. But some more sophisticated systems have that satellite controlled sensors, and or moisture sensors. They have soil moisture sensors, and they shut off automatically when the moisture gets to a certain point, or when there's rain forecast. In Skip Mesa, some of the system has that, but we tried to use the state-of-the-art and save a lot of money by using solar-powered controllers, which are actually really good. It's a really high-quality product. It's a controller that has a little small solar panel on the top, so you don't have to have PG&E install a meter and run all this conduit and all the costs of that whole. It's very expensive to have a electric meter, the meter pedestal and all that, and all the conduit and everything. So in 2 locations we have those systems, but there's no system that's foolproof. So and our contractor generally is very good about it, but our contractor just recently took over phase 4, so I think Denise lives in phase 2, but so I've taken notes and I'll follow up, but yeah, it's just, there's no perfect system out there. And
I read that Santa Barbara is giving those rain shut-off sensors away for free to their users. Is that, do you know what that involves? Those sensors that they're using?
no, I'm not familiar with what they're doing.
Yeah,
Yeah, no.
Would it make any sense for us to run a rebate program for people to install these kinds of
Yeah, that's a
smart
good idea.
sensors?
That's a good idea. People can upgrade their irrigation system, have a rebate.
Yeah,
program. That's a
yeah.
very good idea. Yeah.
Well, would you get back with us on the possibilities then?
Yeah, no, that's
That's good.
very,
Yeah, and in our outreach, we'll also bring up the turn off your sprinklers after it rains
Right.
in that message. Try to get that out there.
Okay, well, I'm
And
glad
we'll
to.
lead by example, right?
Yeah.
I'm glad to see something positive come out of my extreme reaction to stage 2 drought.
Hey, that's what it's all about, working it out. Thank you, Neil, for starting it. Regarding the supplemental water purchase, shall we give Matt a trigger to purchase? And shall we limit the amount, or limit the amount he can spend, or the amount of,
well, so just to clarify, if it drops to 10%, we'll have no carryover for 2019. We will have the 145 acre feet that ID1 will exchange, they'll return in 2019, but that'll be it. So.
And that's including the Palmdale return, or not
Yeah,
including?
the Palmdale return, no, it doesn't.
Okay.
Doesn't include that.
Okay.
now,
So that'll take us to 200.
as we go in time, is the price of water fluctuating enough, or is it an increasing trend, or is it,
Well, it was starting to go up, but then we had this rain and people started dropping their numbers.
Right,
So,
yeah. So it's a market-driven thing.
Oh, yeah, jeez.
And so how do
Sad
we,
thing
do we
is-
want to give him a trigger point that he can pull and purchase or not?
And this can't be a decision that we wait 2 more weeks on to see where things.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna be gone for a few days, the rest of this week and at the end of March, so that's one thing. Had some planned time off, but it'd be better if you could give us direction now,
Okay.
and we'll be careful to follow your direction
You know,
precisely. But
that's my question. What kind of a direction do we want to give Matt?
Yeah, I mean, the main trigger is going to be if that 20% changes. That's
That's
the
gonna be
key piece of this.
If it goes to 10%.
Yeah.
And then, okay, then if it does that, how much money do you need to bring us up to snuff?
uh,
About
Do
200,000.
you want the 200?
200. I think 200,000 actually.
200,000
would
was
do
for-
it. This will get us. It'll get us 200 acre feet approximately.
So I got a quick question. The 20% that once we are below that, can we clarify that that's the allocation for the year?
Yeah, the state allocation.
Okay, and right now it's set at 20.
It's at 20, but
Currently at 20, and they have indicated there's a possibility it could be dropped as low as 10.
So we really need to get in a place where none of that matters. Seriously, you can't play the game like this. If you want to move forward and advance, you cannot play the game where we're depending on 5% or 10% 1 year. I mean, we should be sustainable for 5 years at 0%. Yeah, that's my comment on that.
Well, I would just comment that's a really good goal. Unfortunately, as I've mentioned before, Solvang sits on the really crappy part of the whole San Ynez Valley groundwater basin.
Yeah, we're on a rock.
If you look at the DWR has a map of the whole San Ynez basin, and I had it up there last meeting, and there's two little islands that are right in Solvang that are not part of the groundwater basin because you have bedrock so close to the surface that the DWR didn't even map it as part of the basin. It's like these little pockets where there's no water. But again, the basin's like this big bowl, and the land falls from the foothills gradually towards the river. And so you have the surface, and the bowl from the foothills is deeper, and it gets narrower or shallower towards the river. And it can, they think, spill, on really wet years, kind of spill and ooze from the basin into the river underflow. But anyway, so we're on where we do have wells. It's that shallow end, and so we're hitting bedrock at 400 and 500 feet instead of 900 and 1,000 feet, and so that dramatically impacts the capacity of our wells. So yeah, I mean, you could brainstorm, and there's things you could do, but you got to think about the costs. Like, for example, city could buy a farm outside of the boundary of the ID1 water district, outside of their boundary, on the east side of Highway 154, and drill a couple wells. But then you'd have to have a water wheeling agreement with ID1. You'd have to make sure you don't have any chromium-6 or anything, or otherwise you'd have to put a treatment there, and that's going to be, mega bucks. And you'd have to have an agreement for them to wheel it and everything, and they wouldn't want to run it through their system unless it was, obviously met all the health standards and everything. And so there's, sadly, to every solution, there's a problem.
Well, if we could do that east of us, why can't we do it west of us? There's a nice well just west of us.
Yeah, you can, there's a lot of things that are physically possible. It's just the cost. So, for example, what you could do is just every year, you could say, we're not going to do anything else except buy tons of state water, supplemental state water every year, whenever it's low. Whenever you can get a low price, just buy a ton of state water. And we looked at that kind of concept because, that's the higher quality water. People are going to soften less, and that is an option or an alternative to wellhead treatment or additional treatment at the wastewater treatment plant. So that is one tactic you could take, where just every year when you have a wet year, just buy a whole ton of state water and, carry it over in San Luis Reservoir and just run your wells minimally. So there's all kinds of different possibilities, and we could do a study to look at a lot of different alternatives and just brainstorm and look at the cost comparison of all these different things. You know, we've kind of done back of the napkin cost analysis on some of those things, you know, when you've had questions of the staff and stuff, but, so, you know,
Is the supplemental water paid at the same rate as our regular water, the 20%? We'd get 20% of the supplement? We couldn't buy the entire supplement? The 200
Well-
acre feet?
well,
You're buying actual allocation. So if you're buying supplemental water, you're buying somebody's 20%, some of their 20% that they got.
Some of their
Yeah,
20%.
some of their 20%, right. But just to kind of piggyback, Matt, remember they're limiting how long you can keep water in San Luis now.
yeah, actually just 1 year, but
I want to comment on that. We need to stay away from state bureaucracy and reservoirs and banking and all that other nonsense, paper water crap, and just be real with the situation. It doesn't take too much to figure this out. Yeah, so that we need to stay away from that stuff.
I'm not suggesting we do that. I'm just saying that is an option or an alternative. Now, if you did wells to the west, now once you get past the bluff on the west side of Skip Mesa, now you're into the Buellton groundwater, the Buellton sub-basin, and they have their own management area and everything. And so, you know, so it's doable, but there'll probably be lots of restrictions and stuff too, so.
Okay, so back to the supplemental water purchase. What is your desire?
If we had, let's say we get our 20% this year, and next year it goes down to 10%. By then we would have well 22 online.
Yep, that's right.
So
Hopefully it's
if
good
we,
quality.
hopefully if that happened, right, would we be in a decent shape where we wouldn't have to again purchase additional water?
So, if well 22 is in service for the full year, we'll be able to get about 120 acre feet from that well. And, let me go back to so like this year, for example, we've had 246 acre feet of state carryover, plus the 150. And this year's not really the best. I mean, that's a good amount of carryover, but our allocation's really low. Well, this shows if it's 10%. But then you're talking about basically.
And that carryover,
400.
just to confirm that, the carryover number that you have there, that's after we paid back the 350 acre feet.
Yes,
Okay.
that's correct, yeah.
So otherwise, we could have had over 500 acre feet of carryover from last year if we didn't owe.
Right,
pay
we
back
could
that.
have, chosen to pay back, a partial payback or none.
Got it.
But, there is a time limit within which we have to pay it back, and 85% state water allocation, that's, really high.
Right.
So it's kind of made sense to do that. But anyway, so you basically have 400 acre feet in the pie chart of carryover plus state allocation. So if that was, if next year the state allocation was 10%, you'd have that 150, and well, 22 can make up about half of that light blue wedge. So, 120 acre feet, as I mentioned. And so you'd still have that 120 deficit. And that's that's assuming a 1,250 acre feet demand. So, which
Could we ride along as we are, and in the event of a problem, call an emergency council meeting to pull the trigger? Would that be an acceptable?
Like the fire department does the drop of the water, in the fires. Maybe they just drop it on us. That makes them.
okay.
Would
We'll do it softly, so it won't hurt.
Would that be an acceptable route to go, is to let it ride as it is, and if we look like we're gonna get into trouble, call a special council meeting to discuss the purchase of additional water, instead of
Well,
having a trigger?
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I'm looking for anyway, to avoid purchasing
Right, and we could avoid purchasing water
water.
by holding off on that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And then, in emergency, then we could go to it, but it may cost us more because the demand will be there for that additional water.
Well, right now, we kind of have our foot in the door, so to speak. And our administrative costs that we're on the hook for are less than $10,000. Actually, I think with the last time it was about $6,000. So we're kind of on the hook, just to keep our foot in the door, we're on the hook for, and that's a small, right, $6,000. It's kind of a small amount to pay just to keep the option open. Yeah, so if a deal goes through, then it'll be, I think, mid-April when we have to basically sign and commit to, whatever we're gonna purchase.
I have a question on that. So, we buy 1,000 acre feet, let's say, and then we need it in a year when the allocation is 10%. Do we get 10% of that 1,000 acre feet that we purchased, or do we get the 1,000 acre feet on demand?
If we purchase 1,000 acre feet right now,
Mm-hmm.
then whatever of that we use this year gets deducted from that 1,000. Whatever we don't use of that 1,000 carries over into 2019. And as long as it's not a super wet year, and if it was really super wet like last year, there's a potential San Luis Reservoir could fill and spill and we'd lose it. But assuming that doesn't happen and next year is a dry year, then we have that full amount to use next year. So we have to use all of it next year, though. They only let you carry over 1 year from this year to next year.
We use the full amount on demand. That was my question, basically.
Yeah, it's not affected
not
by
gonna
the
be
next
limited.
year's allocation, I
Gotcha.
think is what you're asking.
Okay.
That 1,000 acre feet is less the carriage losses, right? So it's really 750?
It depends.
That's if you buy
depends
north.
where you buy it or from whom you buy it.
But it's still subject to all the holding and passage and paying off everybody along
Yeah,
the way, right?
there are transportation
Transportation
charges.
costs, yeah.
Not worth it.
And if we purchased a more conservative amount of water, if you move forward with that today, for example, 100 acre feet, and things get drier and we decide we want more, you're saying that the agreement would basically all be there, just need the number there. So what would be the odds of being able to increase?
Well, CCWA's already requested what amount each agency wants, and we have told them that we might want to increase ours if the state allocation were to drop. So they know that there's a little bit of wiggle room to change. But what happens is they take the sum of the 4 agencies. So Carpinteria, Montecito, Santa Barbara, and Solvang, we're the 4 agencies participating in the supplemental water purchase at this point. They ask everybody, how much do you want actually delivered to your door? And so, and then based on whether there's going to be carriage losses or not, they adjust that. But, and so they work a deal for that amount. So like if the total is 4,000 acre feet, then that's the deal that they're making. So we can't really increase ours. If the total of what everybody wants is like 3,800, they might make a deal for a nice round 4,000 acre feet. So there's 200 acre feet in there that the 4 agencies could sort of haggle over or whatever, and we could bump our request up a little bit, but not a lot, because they've already made this deal for a fixed amount of water. So once that moves forward, we can't change that. So what you could do is tell the staff, okay, if the allocation stays 20% or more, don't buy any water. If the allocation drops to 15%, buy 100 acre feet. If it drops to 10%, buy approximately 200 acre feet. In no case spend over 200,000. And if things drastically change, come back to us at the end of April and for further direction or something like that.
How does that sound?
Kind of sounds like a Ponzi scheme.
Well, kind of what it is. It's the water business in California. Man. It's crazy.
You know, you could say today, if it stays at 20%, we're not going to purchase any. If it drops, call a special meeting, and we'll give you direction, if that's what you'd like to do. It sounds like you don't want to make a commitment tonight. That's fine.
I'd like to see it that way, and actually, if push came to shove, we could wait till the first meeting in April to really make a final decision, if the decision had to be made by mid-April anyhow, right?
Right. Yeah. So we'll keep our foot in the door.
Okay. So can I have a motion with that suggestion that we table it tonight, and then call an emergency session if the allocation drops below 20%.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
Whether it's
s-
15 or 10.
And I think we wouldn't be, I don't think we'd be tabling, I think we're making a motion to call an emergency meeting to approve the purchase of additional water should the allocation drop below 20%. Correct?
Well, I think the direction would be to staff to consult with council and schedule one, because making a motion to call a meeting without having the date,
Oh.
yeah, we won't know when that date will be based on your availability. So if you give
Okay.
direction to staff as part of that motion to call that special meeting on 24 hours notice, if we get that information, then we
Okay,
can
I'll
proceed.
give direction to staff to call that meeting and give us 24 hours notice should the allocation drop below 20% for additional purchase of water.
I'll second that.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. We'll just have a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None, I hear five ayes. All right. Pass 5-0. Okay. The ad hoc committee pursuing long-term exchange agreement.
Do we have an ad hoc committee?
We do have an ad hoc committee. Ryan and Neil are on it.
Okay. So we're good there, except you wanted to make some changes.
We're with Neil's agreement, if he wants to, then we can put Karen on the ad hoc committee, and we have to bring that up at the next meeting as an agenda item.
So there can't be any negotiations until the next meeting.
Well, they can negotiate and then in 2 weeks, change in midstream.
So
Or
Ryan and Neil will negotiate.
allow the negotiations to continue, and when they're done,
Okay.
then we can do it.
Can you shift a member like that and it not be a Brown Act?
Yeah, it's an ad hoc committee, and you're going to be bringing back at the next meeting the change of membership. But if you start negotiations now, you can certainly hand off the baton if there is a change. I don't want to presuppose there will be a change, but you can start the negotiations now with the understanding with Idea One there may be a new member coming on in 2 weeks. That doesn't change the direction that we're trying to proceed, though, in negotiating, if that's the direction of the council.
And I have to assume that ID1 is open to a long-term exchange agreement, or it wouldn't be up there as a bullet point? Ad hoc
Well,
committee?
Right now, they're just staff's recommending it, so it wouldn't necessarily suggest that.
Yeah, I wouldn't assume that.
Okay.
It's just
Just start
they
with-
have.
But I think this one's working
One-time
out pretty
deal.
good for us.
Yeah,
So
we had an initial one
Yeah.
with the exchange, and so I think it was Matt
so far
saying, hey,
it's
let's try to
worked
get that.
smoothly and,
Yeah.
It's the city clerk to arrange a meeting between the two ad hoc committees, between ID1 and not. And if they want to participate, then they would want to participate. If they don't want, then we would know. Do we need a motion for that?
No, that's a standing committee that you have, so
Okay.
yeah.
Cool. Now, is that the end of this item? Is there any more discussion, any more action we need to take
Nope,
on
that's
the
it.
water issue?
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt, for your presentation. Item next is council member reports. Do we have any? Seeing none.
Oh, wait, no, you're talking about committee reports? Counseling. Yes, I just need to go ahead and, I think, pass this out. It was from the League of Cities asking us to support Prop 69 and oppose SB 1. So I think that's dealt with at the staff level.
If they ask for a resolution, we would need to bring that back, because staff
Okay,
can't do a resolution.
they-
So I can
it-
bring that back at the next meeting.
They
to-
are asking for a resolution, and they sent out a sample resolution for Prop 69. So I guess we would have to bring that back.
Now, you say they want a resolution for us to oppose the repeal of SB 1,
They want a resolution for us to support 69.
which is,
69, I believe, locks in the funding so that it can't be taken away, the SB 1 funding.
Yeah, the
Okay.
transportation funding. And then SB 1, they want us to oppose any repeal of that.
okay, I agree with that. Being, being on SBCAG, I see the need for the gas tax. And we know how the infrastructure is on the state highways. And SB 1 right now is paying dramatic dividends to the public highway system right now. And an example of that is the recovery of Highway 101 in Montecito. So I hope that you agree with us that we should oppose the repeal of SB 1. If there are any other comments, meeting adjourned.